Hey friends, welcome to the Business in Real Life podcast. Today we're going to talk about the main mistakes people use when launching a Kickstarter project. I've been a part of literally hundreds of Kickstarter projects. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So anyway, let's roll into it. So, Brooke, you know, but many people at home or wherever you're watching this or listening to this may not know, my history for like the last 10 years has been very rooted in Kickstarter. So I started making Kickstarters in like 2012, 2013, right around there. At that time, I think I launched my first one in 2013, but I helped other people launch before that. And then in 2016, that full year, I just recorded Kickstarter videos all year. That was literally my full-time job. I made something like 50 or 60 Kickstarter videos, something like that, maybe a little bit more than that. And I saw everything during that time. I saw things that I loved that people were doing with their products, because I was actually like getting their products. They would send it to me and I'd make a full Kickstarter video. So I actually got to interact with like their sample before like it was even launched. So it was pretty cool to be able to see that. But because of that, I got a really good insight of like, okay, how far along should I be? Like, what are the things that these people did to prep to get their Kickstarter going? And what are the things that I'm like, how are they launching right now? So it'll be fun to jump through those things and like, I don't know, just talk about them. A lot of them, I haven't talked about them for a long time or on the internet at all. So it'll be fun to like kind of deep dive into that stuff. But I think we'll go in somewhat of chronological order. And the very first thing is like, okay, so say the biggest mistake I see people do on Kickstarter, I think, is put way more effort into product development than they do Kickstarter development, right? Like doing a lot of prep on Kickstarter before you launch, a really great video, really great graphics will do even more than a really great product will, because it gets people excited about your product. And so getting that organized, we can kind of walk through some of the ways that us at Gravel, the steps that we've done to get organized before we even launch.
You nailed it. Having an awesome video and awesome branding, it makes you a little more credible. There are still a lot of people out there that are a little skeptical of Kickstarter because they don't really understand, it's a pre-ordering site, so I'm not getting my product right away. But looking legit, having a sweet brand, having an awesome video, that will boost your credibility and your visibility on the Kickstarter platform. You'll have a leg up on your competition for sure.
I realize this is an unconventional way of selling products. Like we, as product makers and inventors, we realize that. And the audience also realizes that to some degree, but they also kind of have their guard up because they're like, oh, these people are just launching a product. Like, can I even trust to get that product? And so having that extra photo, video, graphic design, all of that stuff, and having it super dialed builds that trust. But then there's obviously a ton of other stuff. There's goals. You can set up a calendar. You can do, anyway, you can kind of dive into like our Trello board and our Asana and like what we do to get organized a lot better.
We think that the number one mistake you can make is not having enough prep. Like Lance said, you can kind of get sucked into just the product development, which is great. You want to have a good product, but not having anything to back it up, it will make your experience way harder during the campaign. So what we do is we make a Trello board or Asana to delegate our roles, and so we can stick to them. It helps us make a realistic timeline, and it also makes it way easier. So I'm not like, Lance, what are you working on? I can hop onto the Trello board and say, okay, Lance is doing the video. Chris was working on the story. I'm working on the emails that are going to go out. It's just easy, and it makes it way better experience for everybody. But it also ensures that things don't fall through the cracks, because there are certain things you can't edit when you launch your Kickstarter. Like pledges, for example. You can't edit pledges after you've launched. And we'll dive into why that matters a little bit later. But it's super important that you are prepared and you have all these things written down so nothing falls through.
And just a quick overview, this isn't actually our Trello board for Kickstarter stuff, but this is kind of the basic of what Trello is. So how we do it is kind of say like our titles up here say like 4 weeks before we launch, these are the things we need to do. 3 weeks before we launch, this is what we need to have done. 2 weeks before launch here. 1 week before launch day. Anyway, we kind of have it set up that way so we can say, okay, right now, this week, this is what I need to get done. Within these, you can kind of jump in, you can add attachments, you can add descriptions, you can even comment on these and talk back and forth within each of these tasks.
If you don't want to do it online, this is literally just like using sticky notes. So if you're more old school, this is like the new school version of sticky notes, but we like it because we all work from home, so we can't use sticky notes. But when we were in the office, we basically were doing this physically with sticky notes, and you can have a 1 week column and move those sticky notes. Okay, we didn't get this done. Let's try to get it done in week 2. Or you get to feel really fulfilled and put it into the complete column, which is always an awesome feeling.
There's also other programs.
Even Apple reminders you can use.
There's Evernote. Evernote's really cool on your phone and on your computer. Totally. There's a bunch of different ways to kind of create a checklist, but having some accountability with that, having like a checklist where you and the other people working on it can check these things off beforehand, huge.
Definitely.
Some of the things that should be on that list are obviously, I've mentioned a couple times in this already, but photo, video, graphic design, having those things completed. There's your actual story that you jump through, making sure that it creates like a really good message, gives all the details that your audience needs. Then there's also like PR, so trying to get on blogs. Anyway, a quick tip of getting better PR is you can literally so for this is a pizza cutter, right? Midnight Slice, the ergonomics food slicer. You can literally grab this, copy it, paste it in Google, and then go down, and it's like, oh, okay, there's the Kickstarter project. Here's their website. Trend Hunter. Okay, all of a sudden you can be like, okay, cool. They got an article on Trend Hunter. That's the main article that they got. Then you can go back, and so then all of a sudden you can go hit up Trend Hunter because you know that they feature similar products to what you want. Oh, BackerKit did a feature. Oh, Idea Hunter did a feature. And so it doesn't have to be like an exact competitor, but somebody in a similar field, you can jump in, copy their exact title of their Kickstarter project, and find all the awesome blogs and features that they got. So there's a little 2-second tip for...
Yeah, that's sweet.
For getting more PR. Because sometimes it's hard to where do I even start? What do I even do?
And you can look at who wrote those articles too. Look at who the articles are by and reach out to those same people.
Yeah, find them on LinkedIn or whatever. Works great. So there's the 2-second thing. But really it's about setting a realistic calendar of goals of things that you need to get done beforehand, including PR and all those other things, so that you're not doing those on the last day before you launch. Because you're just not going to have as good of a launch. The first 3 days of your campaign, you'll raise more money than any other day of your entire campaign. It's extremely important to have a really good launch. And you're not going to have that if you're just trying to prep the whole thing in a day.
If you do, we always race to the finish. That last day is so stressful, even if you're prepared. So this isn't going to fix all of your problems, but it will help you not have anything fall through the cracks, and that's super important. There's always more that can be done.
Always. And that, yeah, I think that's a good point because obviously we aren't 100% there when we launch. There's things that we wish we could had time to do, and we're always, staying up till 4 a.m. the night before we launch. That's just how it will go no matter how much prep you do.
Totally.
But if you're doing everything, that's the difference.
Yep.
Jumping into the second topic is really talking about the product. So a lot of people don't really put a ton of effort into the Kickstarter project, but also don't put effort into the product. So for instance, I once did a video of this dude who he was making a hat, and on the bill of the hat were these flexible solar panels, and within the hat there was a small battery and then a USB outlet on it. Obviously, it's debatable whether that's a good idea to start out with, but what he did was he actually had all that stuff on a Nike hat. he didn't even go out of his way to like put that sample on like a blank hat that he could actually find and manufacture. And so what his whole goal was, I think, is like, oh, well, I'll just sell some of these and then I'll just make them in my house. And then, you know, I'll just find some hats or whatever. But by not creating that actual product that's branded his product, that all of a sudden ruins that trust, right? Like, I'm not going to trust giving this guy my money when he didn't even put enough effort to not get a blank sample or put his logo on it, right? Like, it's all about building that trust.
Well, and it just makes you look a lot more professional if it looks like your own prototype. If you aren't obsessed enough with your product to go out and make it look like your own product, then you shouldn't be launching a Kickstarter. There are certain things that are like our add-ons to products that exist, and that's completely different. But if you're just like, I have this idea and you kind of half-ass it a little bit, you got to use your whole ass. And I don't like, you got to go for it, because people are going to read right through that. Oh, he just had his friend take pictures of this hat with an iPhone and he just slapped a battery on it. I wouldn't trust that. Like Lance said, it kind of takes away your credibility, which also loses you visibility on the platform, because it's a backer-based website. The more people that like your product, the higher it goes in the rankings and the more successful you'll be.
If you're not whole-assing it, don't even launch. That's
don't even try.
That's the takeaway.
And it's not going to be perfect, but still, like, showing that you're trying and that you are so obsessed with your product that you want to make it your own, that speaks volumes to what kind of business you're going to run.
You don't have to necessarily have a manufactured sample. Like, it's okay to manufacture it yourself. I wouldn't suggest manufacturing yourself, but it's okay to manufacture yourself, and if that's the plan. But if you're going to actually manufacture yourself, then you better have the hat that you're going to manufacture with. You better have the logo on it that you're planning to put on there. It better be a production line manufactured sample yourself, like exactly what it's going to be. And that's fine if you want to do that, but I suggest finding a manufacturer. But even if you find a manufacturer, like, whatever you launch with needs to be in line enough to what the final is going to be, because that's going to do nothing but cause delays, right? If you launch that hat and you're like, yeah, I could probably get these flexible solar panels. Like, I think I can get them in bulk. I could find a blank hat. Like, but it's like, okay, you get that blank hat. What if you can't find one with the rim that's the exact same as the one you made on the Nike hat? And that's what held your battery, and that's where the USB went. Like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, sorry.
Right.
I have to find a different sample. Okay, I can't find a sample like this. I have to redesign my whole design. And all of a sudden, you're delayed 6 to 12 more months because you're waiting for samples to be made. You're waiting for parts. You're waiting forever or for whatever. And people just start getting pissed off. Like, so
right.
Overall, make sure that whatever you launch with is a nice, like, production sample.
Yeah.
Like, it looks really good. It's what you will make when you're actually making it for these people that are pledging towards you.
Or identical. If you do have to make it yourself, make sure it looks as much as it can. Dealing with customers is tough, because most of them are going to be so pumped. But if you change one thing that you think, oh, this won't even matter, it'll matter. Especially, like Lance said, if you are launching with a flat brim and then you suddenly change it to a curved brim on a hat, people will care. They back to the flat brim. So it's super important. Make that decision. If you launch with a manufactured sample, make sure that it's as close as you want to get, because covering those problems up with Band-Aids, you can only get someone so far before they cancel their pledge or are just leaving mean comments. You don't want to deal with that stuff. So just be really certain and go with it. You can always launch a version 2 if you want something different, but be confident, go with your gut, and go with it.
The other thing, just going along with that hand in hand, is finding an actual manufacturer. So a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm making this hat with a solar panel, and I'll probably do it myself unless we do more, and then maybe I'll find a manufacturer then. I've heard that quite a bit, and it's like, no, you need to have that solidified before you launch. All you're doing is creating delays that are unnecessary, which will just inevitably piss people off. So make sure that before you launch, have a manufacturer ready or manufacture yourself, but also figure out all the processes of manufacturing yourself before you launch.
Which, if you haven't listened to or watched our episode on manufacturing, highly recommend that. It's with Alex, who works in manufacturing, and there are so many good thoughts from that episode. We'll link it in the description.
The other thing is there's a lot of, if you're manufacturing overseas specifically, there's a lot of hidden delays that can happen. So there's shipping delays. So your manufacturer tells you like, hey, this will take us 60 days to complete. And then you're like, okay. So then you tell your backers like, hey, we'll have these in 60 days. But the reality is it takes 60 days to make the product, but then it takes another 4 to 5 weeks to ship you the product. And there's a week or so delay in between there between finishing the product and getting it on a boat and then getting off the boat through customs and then from customs to your actual state. So there's like all these different delays that can happen where it's like, oh yeah, we told them 6 weeks or they told us 6 weeks, but it's actually like pretty easily 12 weeks, pretty easily double the amount of time that they told you. So just because of all these delays that back up. The other thing too is it hits customs. All of a sudden you're going to be paying a tariff to get that into the country. So your manufacturer's like, hey, this costs you $100 to make per product. And you're like, okay. And then once it gets to customs is like, hey, there's a 20% customs fee. And you're like, oh, okay. So all of a sudden you owe another $20 per product on top of that. But maybe you didn't budget for that. And maybe it also costs $20. Maybe it's a heavy item and it costs $20 per product to ship it from the manufacturer to you. So all of a sudden when you thought and you budgeted for $100 per product, you could really easily be in at $140 per product before you even shipped it out to the customer. And then a lot of people, the whole thing that you do nowadays is like, oh, free shipping. Like websites, if you don't have free shipping, you're losing money. So you do that on Kickstarter. You're like, yeah, we'll do free shipping and we'll just figure it out. But then all of a sudden you get this product, you weigh it, you're like, okay, I live in Utah, I want to ship it to Florida. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, shoot, that's another $20 to ship it to Florida. And maybe you only charge the people $150 because you're like, oh yeah, $50 profit per item. That sounds great. But then after all that stuff, it's like, oh, this is costing me $160 just to get it to the customer. I'm negative $10 per product just to get it to them. So there's just a lot of hidden, be really careful of tariffs. Be really careful of shipping from the manufacturer to you. Be really careful of shipping from you out to your customer. You need to have that all in line before you launch so that there's not those hidden areas that really screw with your margin. And then what you do is you take the cost of manufacturer plus shipping plus tariffs. So in our example, that's $140 total. And then you multiply that by 4. What that will do is kind of give you a landed cost and give you a margin to work with so you can run ads, so you can order more product, so you can pay yourself. So let's see. I'm not smart enough to do that in my head. Let's do the calculator. 140 times 4. So if your product landed is $140, you should be charging a minimum of $560 for that product. That's pretty standard. It's called Keystone pricing. It's used all across the board. But that's like the minimum you should have for your product. If it's less than that, I won't even start that business if it's less than that. As long as you're holding inventory. Drop shipping, Amazon, those are a little bit different stories. But if you're selling on your own website, that's the minimum margin you should have.
Right. And make sure you're writing all this stuff down and keep a line sheet of all of your costs because it adds up. You don't want to let go of any number because who's going to pay for it? You don't want to pay for it, And then just with that, you have to remember that you have some international customers too. So you might not want to offer those people free shipping. You have to make that decision because it can be really expensive depending on the weight of your product. If you have a light product, that's great. Just give them free shipping if that matters to you. But it's a really hefty cost. So definitely think of that. And then with that comes customs fees for international people. Kickstarter is an international platform. It's not just the United States. We have so many international customers on Kickstarter the percentage is so high, it always blows my mind.
Most of our projects have been around 50% international.
Yeah, see?
So 50% of our customers are here in the States, 50% have been international.
Nuts.
Yeah, it's wild.
So not only are you worried about those tariffs, now you have to worry about customs fees.
So this customs fee is actually a fee that people have to pay for importing this good into their country. So if you live in France and you order something from the US, you have to pay a tax if you bring it in. And that's their way of saying, hey, you should buy things from France because it's going to be cheaper because you don't have to pay that tax. In the US, we don't have that. I think over $500. If you order something internationally that costs more than $500, there is a tax. But anything under $500, you don't have to pay that. So we don't really deal with that often, so we don't understand it. But internationally, most countries charge a pretty big customs fee for bringing in any products from outside the U.S. And so some people, I mean, I know we've sold like a $50 toiletry bag, and some people had to pay as much as $20 to bring that into their country. So that added 40% onto their cost of good, which is ridiculous. Anyway.
Now, at Gravel, we have decided that the customer will pay for those. And that was a decision we just made early on, and it's pretty standard on Kickstarter. Most terms and conditions from any Kickstarter company, you can scroll down and they'll have what's called a customs calculator where people can type in where they live. They can see, okay, it's going to cost me this much to receive this product. And one time, I don't know if we weren't very clear about it or what happened, but we had a few people that were pretty upset about paying for customs. And I'm pretty sure it was in our terms and conditions. It wasn't our first rodeo, but still in the Gravel nature, we said, okay, in our terms, we said you would pay for this. I understand you're upset and we really want you to get your product and we want you to love it. We'll split those customs fees with you, even though, I mean, it wasn't our fault. But we knew that we were launching other Kickstarters that were going to be more expensive. And those same people, I recognize their names coming back. So you don't want to turn these smaller problems into bigger ones. Like decide right now on what you're going to do with customs so you don't have to go cover it up later. Something that is a huge mistake that you can make that will come back to hurt your international customers is putting the price that you sold them your product at. So what you can do is put the landed cost on the outside of the package. This is totally legal. Don't put anything less. You can't mark it as a gift unless you're sending a gift to your friend in France. Don't mark it as a gift because it's a legal thing. You don't want to do that.
And people, they will ask you to make it a gift.
Yes.
Like your customers will be like, can you please make this a gift? But that's illegal to do.
Illegal, and you don't want to deal with that. And it also says a lot about your company too. If you're like, oh yeah, mark all 100 international customers as a gift, like that's very transparent what you're doing. Don't mess with it. Just do it right the first time. And on Kickstarter especially, it's very common practice to have those customers pay for customs, and they know that. They're used to it, especially the seasoned Kickstarter people. So make that decision early. Maybe you'll pay for them. Maybe you won't. Make that decision before you launch.
Overall, they're pretty chill about it. Overall, it goes great. But I think those are just things to really note. Like, okay, we need to make sure to look for this and be very transparent and honest about this before we ever launch, just to keep everybody super pumped, super happy. And speaking of which, Kickstarter backers are different than a normal person coming on your website and buying something. Kickstarter backers are a part of launching this product. Like, it's a special thing for them to be there to support you, to help you build up your company. And they feel that too. They feel like very valued for being a part of this. And you need to do things to and prepare before you ever launch to make those people feel special, to make them get limited stuff, to be the first to grab this product. Because they're taking a risk on you, you know? Like, they don't have to do that, but they're taking a risk because it's a cool product. They believe in you. They're excited about it. And so you need to go above and beyond to make them feel special about it.
Totally. It's kind of like when artists make a certain amount of paintings and you can get 1 out of 50 and they put a little thing in the corner that says, 4 out of 50. It's really special to be part of that original launch. And there are a lot of cool things you can do for those customers.
We've done a few things in the past to help them. We actually created, these limited wallets, which are just like a thread wallet. Mine's pretty haggard nowadays. But we never sold them. We literally made them available. We made them custom and made them available just for Kickstarter backers as something like, hey, if you've backed multiple of our projects, you're going to get a free wallet this time. Things like that. And that's mainly just to be like, hey, we're excited that you've backed multiple of our projects. We're excited that you're here. This is a special thing that we're going through. I know that people have put like a special stamp or screen print on their product for the Kickstarter backers, like a green K or something, or even just a green logo that makes it special. There's a lot of things you can do like that.
A lot of people will make board games. You can get a Kickstarter exclusive game board piece, little things like that are probably so cheap to your company, but feel really cool to those people that believe in you.
Yeah, and it's limited. They can only get it through that. There's something special about that. Overall, it's just really important to make them feel loved, make them feel special, make them feel like you're all part of one big family. Because that's what, they're taking a risk on you, and it's important to make them feel like they want to do that again and again, because you'll likely launch multiple projects. So pretty cool. Overall, just making it personal, gamifying it to some extent where, you're creating these products that they can only get through this, makes them excited.
I think that it's just as important to have a community that loves you as it is important to have a product that's awesome. If you don't have a community that loves you, launching is going to be really hard and not as fun. But it's so fun to have these people. I see the same names pop up campaign after campaign, and we send those people pizzas. Legit, we send these people pizzas when we know them or when they write a really nice comment. This isn't necessarily a mistake. This is a mistake episode, but it's a mistake to not make those customers feel valued. So maybe it's not sending them pizzas, but definitely giving them a really fun, cool experience for being one of the first people to believe in you. You should respect them and you should make them feel important.
Definitely. And the last note I really want to make are, if you're not responding to all the comments, do you think that they're going to feel loved and respected? No. If you're not creating a lot of updates, do you think they're going to feel loved or respected? No. Communicate as much as possible about every step of the process, because that's what they're there for. And if you do that, the odds of you having a successful campaign jump up dramatically. So
before you launch your campaign, you have to decide how are you going to ship your products. If it's a tangible product, you have to ship them out to your customers. So Lance, what do we do?
Well, we use a 3PL, which is a third-party logistics company is what 3PL stands for. But it's essentially just a big warehouse that ships a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people. The main reason why we do that is, for one, we're shipping a lot of products. If we as a company needed, if me and you had to ship all those, that would take up all of our time. It doesn't make sense.
Yep.
We want to be the people getting new customers, making our current customers happy, selling more to our current customers, designing new products, right? We don't want to have to sit in a warehouse packaging boxes all day. It's just kind of a step backwards. It's helping people that you've already sold to versus helping new people that you're going to sell to in the future. So for us, we always use a 3PL because you pay a little bit of money to them, but they also get better shipping rates than you or I are going to get. If we just go to the post office where, let's say you pay $10, but then the third-party logistics company gets that same shipment because they're getting them in bulk for $7. And then you pay the 3PL $3 for packaging it up and shipping it. You're actually paying the same amount as me and you would have paid, but we don't actually have to do it. So for us, that's what we use. Obviously, there's some downfalls. You have to be shipping a certain amount. If you're only shipping 20 packages, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
If you're only shipping one package a day, a lot of 3PLs won't take you on. But if you're shipping anywhere from 10 packages a day up, or on Kickstarter, if you have anywhere from a few hundred, you can likely sign on to one of these companies and save yourself the hassle.
They do it all. And they also are the ones that negotiate those rates. it's you can get these cheap rates, but it's a constant battle. So our rep is always talking to UPS, always talking to FedEx, and they also know about all the delays. So we don't have to deal with any of that. Like Lance said, someone else is doing it for us, and it gives us more time to work on marketing, work on our products, work on everything else. So we love the 3PL. It can be expensive. So if this is your first product, maybe you are going to do it yourself, which we've definitely rolled our sleeves up and had to package quite a few for Kickstarter launches. But if it's something that's important to you, definitely look into that.
Overall, I think that those are the main points that we wanted to cover today. We make these every Tuesday. We're really excited. My name's Lance, and this is Brooke. Yeah, if you have any questions, let us know below. If you have anything that's helped with your Kickstarter campaign, let us know down below, and we can chat about that in the future. So, or if you even have a campaign coming up or that's currently live, leave a link down below. And everyone who's watching this, jump down and let's back those projects. So,
or tell us about a time that sucked and a mistake you made, so other people can learn from it, because if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Into it. Super into it. Cool. Thanks for joining, and we will see you next week.
See ya.